Our hospital's closing because there's no money for healthcare. There's plenty of money, and we've got to end Citizens United. There is so much dirty money and dark money in politics, and that money corrupts our leaders. When people say, Eric, we can't afford to do that, take that other $600 billion and invest it in healthcare and education and see what happens. Poverty is a policy choice, and we are choosing to defund our hospitals and education systems, to bomb women and children at the behest of a foreign government that bought them all off. Take control of the Senate, elect a new Senate leader. No disrespect, Chuck, you've been here a long time, and it's time for you to move on, because we need leaders that are not beholden to this status quo, that are not beholden to what's been going on in Washington. The Epstein files are not being pursued and prosecuted because some of the most powerful elites in the world are in there. That's the point. Go drag their ass into court and make them answer for what they've done. We need to get the bought-off establishment out of the way so that those of us who share values and community can go and drive what the majority of Americans and the majority of Kansans want, which is we want change.
People in Kansas don't like politicians very much.
But why?
Well, if I had to guess, it's because it seems like no matter how much we pay in taxes, who we elect, nothing good ever happens for regular hardworking people here. Our federal and state representatives seem to think that the only priority that matters is what's good for business. How can we attract more businesses? How can businesses make even more money? And maybe, if businesses can make enough money, they'll eventually cut the smallest slices off possible for some Kansans to eat. And maybe, the crumbs will fall down to the rest. They will always find money for businesses, even if it costs funding to our schools, roads, social services, whatever, because to many politicians, that is not their problem. You can't hear a homeless guy beg for cash from the inside of your country club. The hungry kids don't go to your kid's private school, so who cares? The answer? Quite a few people. And they're going to try to do something about it if Kansas wants it enough. Throughout the past year, we've seen a new wave of people running for office on a platform that wants to try something different. The idea that we can do something for the average Joe. So, in today's episode of my continuing coverage of this wave of progressive Kansas candidates, we meet Erik Murray. He's running in the Democratic primary to challenge Roger Marshal, seemingly the most hated senator we have, because Jesus Christ, look at this lineup. Probably more importantly though, he takes quite a bit of money from these guys, which in my opinion is certainly a choice. In today's episode, we talk about Erik Murray's stance on fighting government corruption, helping out the average Kansan, and the importance of bringing certain international human trafficking criminals to justice. Just a little fun fact, only 2 people have been prosecuted from these files so far, and one of them is no longer with us. Also, I would like to apologize in advance. I messed up the camera settings on my shot, so in this interview, it's not gonna look good on my end. I'm not the guy who's being interviewed, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, this interview will be available on YouTube and Spotify for easy listening, so please enjoy. And thanks for tuning in. I'm here today with
Erik Murray.
Nice to meet you, Erik. I'm super excited to talk to you today, and we're going to talk a little bit about your campaign and the Senate race here in Kansas. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us your background? Where'd you grow up around Kansas? Give us the things that got you into politics.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Alex, first off, thank you for having me, man. I think we're going to have a fun chat today. So my name is Erik Murray. As you mentioned, I'm running for the United States Senate. I'm running against Roger Marshal. I only say that because he's so just terrible and unpopular. But the reality is I'm running for a better future. I'm running for communities like ours all over this state and all over this country that have been disinvested, forgotten about, and our leaders stopped working for us, the people. And so I'm born and raised in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, and that has really colored how I view the world. I know that our community has such greatness and genius and talent and such amazing young people. All of that poured into me, but I also see that even though we're the most diverse community in the state, we're economically segregated, we've been disinvested in, and the reality is that bad policy, and in some cases bad people, have continued to let us down decade after decade. And so I'm living this juxtaposition of such potential and what I believe to be such greatness, the investment that my family made into me and my education. My mom's a school teacher, my aunt's a school teacher. You know, I'm a big fan of public education for that reason. The fact that I went to the #1 public school in the state of Kansas, folks would think that that's in Johnson County, but it's in Wyandotte County. And the reality is that I've traveled all over this world, and I've seen that there are so much resources and opportunity out there. There's trillions of dollars in circulation, yet communities like Wyandotte County are always told, sorry, there's not enough. And we've ingrained this kind of scarcity mindset that creates this dog-eat-dog mentality. And I see that getting worse and worse. Washington is doing it. Topeka is doing it. Our local government is doing it. And as I've traveled all over this state, I've met other people like me. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a community member. I'm a developer. I build things. And I've met people that are just so frustrated that whether it's the chaos, the corruption, or the cruelty, or some combination of those three is what our government seems to be doing at every level, and we deserve better. And so the reality is, I'm fortunate to be in a moment in time. I'm not, if I was any younger, this would be hard to do because America runs on money, and in order to do something like I'm doing, you have to get to a place of financial freedom, or they will come in and try to crush you. And sadly, I notice as people get any wealthier, they forget about what it's really like to grow up in communities like Wyandotte County, and all of a sudden you've got millionaires trying to become billionaires and billionaires trying to become trillionaires and stepping on communities and stepping on folks like us in the process. So I feel like I'm in this Goldilocks zone as, a middle-aged kid from the dot. I think I'm young, but then this gray hair reminds me I'm not as young as I thought I was. But I've got a young family. My oldest daughter's 24. My youngest is 15. And so I've got 4 kids. They're at an age now where, they don't require dad to be fully hands-on. That gives me time to think about solving problems. I got to a place professionally where, again, I've been successful enough to have a team that can keep things moving so that I can go and fight in Washington and in Topeka. And yes, I even have to fight our local unified government half the time as well. And so I'm just in this place where, I'm frustrated. I generally think that every problem can be solved with creativity, hard work, resources, and I'm just tired of being told that we have to accept this cruelty, corruption, and chaos. And so I figured I'd do something about it. And I think I want to be proud to look back on this moment. We are at a moment in history, and if you want, we can talk about, I've gone to historians and others to figure out, are there any parallels for the level of what I believe to be fascism, genocide in some places, just cruelty, all of these things that are happening all at the same time. And fortunately, my historian friends have said, Eric, we've been here before. Our country is resilient, but certainly in my lifetime, we have not seen this, this level of cruelty and corruption. And because of that, I feel like I'm called to do something about it. My kids are going to say, Dad, what did you do in that moment? My community is going to say, what did you do in that moment? And I want to know that I did everything I could to go to Washington, D.C. and try to fix this, try to hold this president accountable, try to keep folks like Roger Marshal from not only taking away our resources, our health care, closing our hospitals, but taking away our dignity and our humanity at the same time. That we can debate policy, we can debate the size of government, we can debate taxes, but we cannot debate loving your neighbor, taking care of your neighbor, healing the sick. And so, yeah, I could go on and on, man. Alex, I'm going to kick it back over to you so you can ask me some questions, but we're in a moment in time where good people need to step up and fight back.
Absolutely. And I just feel like there's such a huge disconnect between what's happening, in the capital of our nation and what the people in our towns of Kansas are going through, right? It's really frustrating to constantly hear about all of the struggles that people are having and then nothing done about it, or being told that there is no better way forward, that we have to just settle for how things are right now. Well, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the incumbent. So Roger Marshal is the person that you're trying to run against, and can you go ahead and tell me about some of the criticisms that you have about his current senatorship? Sure.
The good news is that I don't spend a lot of time talking about him because every single day my opponent, the incumbent, and this president get up and get on the news or get on Truth Social and prove to the American people why we need to change direction. Roger Marshal, as many people know, ran out of his own town hall. And so the reality is these folks are not only doing all this cruel, corrupt, chaotic stuff, they don't even want to show up to even talk to their own voters, and their own supporters, ran him out of a town hall. So I don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about all the horrible things that Roger Marshal and Donald Trump do. Everyday Americans, everyday Kansans in every corner of this state. Alyssa and I have been traveling all over the state of Kansas. We're probably pushing, after the tour around western Kansas I did yesterday, I would guess we're over 70 of the 105 counties we've been in. And in every corner of this state, people are seeing what tariffs are doing to the farm economy and to small businesses. People are seeing what a doctor, my opponent is a medical doctor, and yet he is facilitating the closing of hospitals and what that's doing to rural communities. So sadly, Americans and Kansans are living, what did Steve Bannon say? Flood the zone with shit. They are literally flooding the zone with shit. every morning. I don't have to go around talking about that. I spend time talking about the future that we can build. What are the solutions, right? How do we solve this? How do we not tell ourselves that we have to accept this? And it oftentimes starts with resources, right? So I spend a lot of time reminding people who've been told, again, I experienced this growing up in Wyandotte County. We're always told there's not money for that. There's not money. Our bridges suck because there's no money to fix our bridges. Our grocery store's closing because there's no money to keep our grocery store open. Our hospital's closing because there's no money for healthcare. Bullshit. There's plenty of money. The reality is our priorities are wrong. We don't have a funding problem. We have a priorities problem. And so I spend time talking about the priorities that the majority of Kansans agree on. And that's where we really connect with folks, whether they're Republican, Democrat, independent, moderate, conservative, aggressive, liberal. I mean, forget about all the labels. Like, we talk about how's healthcare, how's education, how's wages, how's economic opportunity, right? Should we be spending billions turning into trillions of your dollars in faraway lands, bombing, women and children? Or should we be, you say America first. America first means we're investing in healthcare and education and things right here, right? So we don't even need to put partisan labels on that, because as you know, you've probably seen the book, What's the Matter with Kansas? I've experienced some interesting things out there where people have just convinced themselves that, the party system is clearly broken. And if you go out in corners of this state and you lead with, I'm with this party or that party, people are going to immediately have some kind of immediate reaction. What we talk about is solutions, right? We all want healthcare. We all want education. We all want to invest in a better future. I say all. I'm a believer. I think the only place we disagree, Alex, I've been watching your content, man, and I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the messages that you have. The only very slight gripe that I would have with you, because you said I'm pissed off, and I'm pissed off too. And I think every Kansan I've met is pissed off. But you said I have hate in my heart for what is going on. And I think we hate what it is doing to us, but I'm trying to overcome this concept that we have hate in our heart, because we know there are a lot of hateful things being done to us and to our communities, and hate doesn't defeat hate, love defeats hate. So as opposed to hate, I say love has levels. And I remind folks, again, as a kid growing up, my mom and even my grandma, were very, very demanding, right? And so my mom would say, I get a whooping, I get a spanking, I get out of line. She'd say, I'm doing this because I love you. And love can even mean tough love, right? So it's from a place of love that we're going to hold this president accountable. It is from a place of love for children, that we're going to hold these pedophiles and the Epstein files accountable. It is from a place of love for humanity and decency on our planet that we're going to stop funding foreign wars and bombs and all of this. So it all has to come from a place of love. That's the only difference. Otherwise, I think you're spot on.
That hate gets me out of bed, it keeps me motivated. I grind in there to do the things that I can for the people that I love,
That's right.
That's right. Gotta find a way to twist it into something useful, you know what I mean? I feel like that's kind of the biggest issue right now. People in my age group getting the motivation to actually get out there and be willing to go and in your community and talk about these issues and get other people out to vote. That's just the fuel I have, frankly. It's just I got to put this anger somewhere, so I got to put it in.
Yeah, no, and listen, that's totally legit. And that's the hardest part is what you just said. And I love the way you put it, because sadly, that hate as a motivator, or that fear as a motivator, will get you out of bed and fired up quicker than love. And I think that's one of the challenges in politics. I'm not a politician. Frankly, I hate politics and politicians for all the reasons that we're talking about. But that is the hard part, is that oftentimes voters are moved, and people are moved more by negativity, fear, and hatred than they are by positivity. But the solution is going to come through the positivity and the love. So that's always a balance that I have to strike on the campaign trail. I want us to be motivated, but I want us to be motivated from a sense of better, not a sense of fear or hate. So it's a delicate balance, though.
Hey, totally fine. Listen, we all go about it the different ways. So we'll go ahead and dig into the issues. I want to hear give me your top 3 biggest issues that you're most passionate about, that you're running this campaign for, that you want to go take to Washington and fight for Kansans. Go ahead and tell me some of the things that really get you up in the morning.
Yeah, so top 3 is hard because this administration has broken so many things, and people don't realize they're all related. We oftentimes think about issues myopically, and we get forced into false choices when we try to just dissect one one thing at a time. If you go to ericforkansas.com, you'll see all 13 of our policy positions. But here's when people ask me for 3, I can distill them into 3 buckets, and that's this. The first is the basics, right? Healthcare, getting to universal healthcare, getting to Medicare for all, investing in and fully funding public education, and getting a functioning immigration system. Those are the basics. So that would be the first category. The majority of Americans can agree that we need to fix and solve those things, and that's number one. The second is economic opportunity. Everybody else says affordability, but as a business person, I know that there's cost and there's revenue, and we can't only fix the cost side. We've also got to do things like increasing wages, make sure that we're protecting our unions and the right to advocate for better working conditions, et cetera. And so economic opportunity is that second bucket. Everything from getting rid of tariffs, building more housing so that young people can have housing, making sure that we increase wages. Kansas still has a $7.25 minimum wage. Even Missouri has a $15 minimum wage, right? So at a federal level, how do we go and do that? Build up our economy so that it's not that scarcity dog-eat-dog mindset. There's trillions of dollars in circulation and everyone can win. And then lastly is moral courage. And moral courage means so many things right now. Moral courage means, again, the easy one is holding pedophiles from either party accountable. The idea that the Epstein files are not being pursued and prosecuted because some of the most powerful elites in the world are in there. That's the point. Go drag their ass into court and make them answer for what they've done to humanity and our communities. But then that's such a broad, so you start with the physical criminal elements, then you get to the financially corrupt elements of saying everything from the president can't stick $1.2 billion of Americans' crypto money who thought that they were buying something of value. He bankrupted a crypto and stuck $1 billion of Americans' money in his pocket. That's called corruption, right? The fact that senators and congresspeople are trading stocks with inside information is called corruption. And we've got to end Citizens United. There is so much dirty money and dark money in politics, and that money corrupts our leaders.
For those of you who do not know what Citizens United is or what it does, let me explain very briefly. Back in 2010, the Supreme Court made a 5-4 decision in a case called Citizens United versus the FEC. Before this ruling, there were strict limits on how much corporations, unions, and groups could spend to influence elections. The Supreme Court essentially got rid of those limits based on 2 core ideas. 1. Corporations have rights. The court ruled that corporations and unions have the same First Amendment right to free speech as actual people do. 2. Spending money equals free speech. In politics, it takes money to get your message out. TV ads, flyers, digital campaigns. The Supreme Court argued that limiting a group's political spending is the same as capping their free speech, which I know is dumb. So basically, the ruling says that these groups can spend unlimited money, with one caveat being that they are forbidden from giving it directly to a candidate's campaign or coordinating with them. As long as the spending is totally independent, it's not technically a bribe or corrupt. But as we all know, that's not how it works. So obviously people found a way around that rule. Wouldn't you know it, a thing called a super PAC was created. Whereas a regular PAC has legal cap on how much money they can accept from a single person, super PACs have none. A single billionaire or corporation can put unlimited amount of money into a super PAC and then use that money to run attack ads against a candidate they don't like. By law, super PACs have to publicize the names of their donors. To bypass this, rich people started using a cool little trick called a 501c4 nonprofit, which are legally classified as social welfare groups. So here's how it works. A billionaire drops a ton of money into a nonprofit. By law, these nonprofits do not have to tell the public who their donor is. The nonprofit then hands that $50 million straight to a super PAC. When the super PAC reports its donors to the government, it just lists the name of the nonprofit. The actual billionaire name isn't even on the public record. That's called dark money. If you want to know more about this topic or just how corrupt this whole system is, I highly recommend this video from one of my favorite YouTube channels, How Money Works. It talks all about the current system and loopholes that people exploit to essentially buy off our democracy. Anyway, back to the video.
So many of these politicians, I do not like politics or politicians because in the generation that we live in, and it's probably going on before that, but the reality is that all of these fools seem bought off or doing something for someone else that is not the people and that is not humanity and dignity. And we need to get back to leaders who will invest in us as people who will do, it's called public service, right? Who will do public servant work and not work for this PAC or this special interest or this big donor. We've got to get back to doing the work of the people. So that's where the moral courage comes in. We've got to have the courage to call it like we see it. And so many of these folks, and I think parties are also part of that problem. Some of these folks are like, oh, I've got to carry my party line. If your party's screwing up, you have an obligation to say, hey, my party's screwing up. People get upset at me when I say the Democratic Party's screwing up. But the Democratic Party is screwing up. And it goes back to what we talked about a minute ago. It's called tough love, right? If I really love the Democratic Party, I should tell it it's screwing up. It's like my mom said, son, I'm spanking you because I love you. We have got to fix it because I believe that democratic values work. Democratic values are why I sit before you today. I got a great public education. Thanks to my parents being public educators and public workers, I had great health insurance, right? So I'm proof that democratic values, if we invest in kids and we invest in community, that shit works. But the problem is that the Democratic Party, our brand is tarnished. We've been dragged by Republicans and distracted into culture wars and everything else when we forgot to articulate to communities that racism is bad for business, that sexism is bad for business. And at the end of the day, because America runs on money, and Alyssa and I debate, we could have a really interesting, longer discussion about financial systems and is this the right one or not. But what I tell her is today, the game is capitalism. How do we make capitalism work for our communities, though? I call myself a conscious capitalist, right? And she always beats me up for that. You know how activist my daughter is. But I say, listen, honey, when your generation flips that game into something else, I better learn that too. But right now, the best thing that I can do for our communities, since this global economy runs on money, is make sure that we are fairly taxing billionaires so that money comes back into communities that need it. To make sure that we are funding healthcare and education instead of war, right? So I think that's the other issue is in a vacuum, we would tell ourselves that money is the root of all evil, because it probably is. But the same way that money is being spent to kill children, to harm communities, to do misaligned shit, we could also change the paradigm and use money as a tool to invest in food, feeding starving children as opposed to taking their food away, educating kids as opposed to defunding our schools, investing in healthcare as opposed to bombing people, right? So that is the kind of energy that I bring to the current moment and to the current financial system. And I'm happy to have a debate about what happens next. But for right now, I've really just worked hard to understand how all of that works. And instead of everybody else who's working for this PAC or working for that special interest, I'm here to work for my community. As a kid from the dot, I want every kid from the dot to win. And as a candidate who's running statewide to be your next U.S. Senator, as I've traveled around the state, I've realized there's a Wyandotte County in every corner of this state. There's a disinvested community that's hospital closed, this grocery store closed, where folks are getting laid off, where folks don't have health care coverage. 10,000 Kansas kids are starving. So there's a Wyandotte County everywhere, and I bring that energy of knowing how to fix it and believing that we can fix it, and also knowing that there's trillions of dollars in circulation that need to be invested in our communities.
So I like what you said there about the current issues that we have with the system in terms of corruption. It seems that money truly is the biggest motivator for our politicians that are currently sitting to do something. In terms of making something actionable happen for the citizens of Kansas and citizens of the United States of America, the biggest issue that I see right now is that the current system that we have only benefits people who are willing to sell themselves out and sell to the American people out for corporate interests. And I think that's sort of my biggest thing. So I just want to ask, because I'll tell you, this will tell me everything I really need to know about you and my vote for you. So would you commit to supporting legislation that would functionally impose like harsh anti-corruption measures? Like I personally enjoy telling people, it's like, I would love to see the abolition of corporate lobbying in my lifetime. Yep. Because frankly, I think the only thing that is stopping people in Washington, D.C. from doing things that actually are meaningful for the people here, in our neighborhoods is that they have someone pulling the strings and there's dollars just wrapped around those strings that pull them. You know what I mean? You can't. Sure. It's impossible to get anything done when we are not their motivating factor for the work that they're doing up there. So I just want to hear about, so what do you think about that?
That's an easy one. The answer is unequivocally yes. To prove that, I'm one of only 2 candidates here running statewide in Kansas that took the political integrity pledge, which says all of what you just said. A ban on lobbying, a ban on stock trading, not taking corporate PAC money, not taking special interest money. People don't know I'm the #1 fundraiser in, according to the FEC filings, in this Democratic primary, and we've gotten all of that raised 100% from individuals. We are not taking any PAC money. We are not taking any special interest money, and that's how our politics should be. I want people to know when I get to Washington who I work for. I only work for Kansans and Americans. I don't work for any corporation. I don't work certainly for any foreign government. I mean, that's the crazy part. So yeah, that's an easy question to answer. The money in politics is a big part of the problem. And we need all of our leaders to take the political integrity pledge and say we're going to get the money out of politics. Otherwise, they're not public servants.
Absolutely. Well, damn. Hey, that answers my question.
Here's why. Yeah. Remember what I said at the opening. I have an understanding of why people sell out. And I'm not saying it's right. It's dead wrong. If you're going to sell out, go sell out in something that's not called public service. You cannot sign up to be a public servant and then sell out your community. But I do understand, again, you got to remember, I come from a community of scarcity. So what happens when you have a scarcity mindset is people come to you and they say, hey, listen, Alex, I know you mean well, but you're hungry. And then, so because of that mindset, so the beauty is I had to get to a place in my own personal journey that I'm not motivated by money anymore. My kids are going to eat tonight. I'm going to have a roof over my head. But that's why I can't sit here and just be selfish and say, well, I'm good. Everybody else can struggle, right? Or I can't say, well, I'm good, so let me go become a billionaire or a trillionaire just because I've gotten to a point where I say, I don't need a job in Congress or a job as a lobbyist. I don't need to defraud the American people or be corrupt. I need to go make sure that every other kid in my community has the same thing that my kids do: a roof over their head, a meal in their belly, and some books and education, right? And so I think you have to understand, though, I am more angry at these billionaires that are racing to become trillionaires because they already have the sun, the moon, and the stars, so it doesn't make sense to me. I have a little more grace, but zero tolerance for folks who are literally trapped in scarcity mindset and are willing to sell their community out for $1 because they never had $1. And I think that is the fundamental problem that I see. And that's what I told you at the beginning. That's what's getting worse. This administration knows by stripping resources out of community, by stripping education out of community, all they're doing is making us more and more desperate. And when people are desperate, that's what creates the conditions where they're willing to sell out. Because if they're selfish and they're desperate, then that's what happens. And that's playing out right now. Sadly, again, my Wyandotte County upbringing informed a lot of this. This is playing out as we speak in our local government. We have one of the poorest counties in the state. We are right next to Johnson County, which is one of the wealthiest counties in the state. And so folks from Johnson County will come into Wyandotte County and say, ooh, this looks like a good business opportunity, right? Because the poor community doesn't have the ability to say, I don't want a stadium, right? The poor community doesn't have the political power to say, no, we're not going to give a billionaire club owner billions of tax dollars that could be better spent on healthcare and education. So I have seen communities like ours be taken advantage of. And for as long as communities like ours are trapped in poverty and scarcity, and then the people that we elect come from communities that have been trapped in poverty and scarcity, they bring that trauma into office. And so when somebody offers them a bag of peanuts to sell out our community, they take the peanuts. And so that's the real fundamental problem in this economy is that this dog eat dog scarcity that is tied to disinvestment. And the thing that pisses me off the most about this administration is that it's intentional. Poverty is a policy choice, and we are choosing to defund our hospitals and education systems while they are choosing to bomb women and children at the behest of a foreign government that bought them all off. And I have no time or tolerance for that.
Absolutely. And honestly, and this brings up an excellent point. So one of the biggest issues that always gets brought up, right? I mean, I have friends like across the political spectrum. They don't want to pay more in taxes. I'm going to be honest, like I get it, because when you pay taxes and you don't get something, you feel like you're not getting anything that tangibly changes your life. Yes, you are not going to want to pay taxes. But when you present policies that could actually do something for them, right? Like if you fund their children's education, that's something that you can point to and be like, guys, look, I understand it sucks. Like no one wants to pay this. No one wants to pay like these high ass taxes, but you have to understand, like you are not the one who is not paying their fair share. Like there are people who have an amount of wealth that is by like several orders of magnitude that are not chipping in, and that is the reason why our public education is underfunded. We don't have proper access to healthcare. Like these are all things that are doable that other countries throughout the world have, that we for some reason like cannot get right, which it seems by design.
You're totally right. So I mean, let's stick with that though. You hit the nail on the head. The reality is exactly what you said. taxes feel like an investment in government, right? And if you see a return on that investment, as much as we all hate taxes, if I got new parks, good roads, and good schools, then you're like, you know what? I hate the taxes, but it's cool, right? And you know what I call that? Johnson County. Because people who live in Johnson County, as you pay taxes, at least you have one of the top qualities of life. You have green spaces and public parks. You know what I don't see in Johnson County? Data centers and stadiums. So when tax dollars are invested wisely and they recirculate in community, you grow the economy, you invest in community, so you invest in quality of life, and that's why you have this great community. In Wyandotte County, we see the opposite of that. We all pay taxes, but where does the money go? Oh, well, the money was stripped out. NASCAR, the France family called and wants to build a NASCAR track, and they want you to pay for it, taxpayers, so the taxpayers pay for it. And then Clark Hunt called and wants to build a stadium, and you paid for that too. And then, so we're the #1 tourist destination in the state. But what are you doing for the people that live there, right? And so that's the sad part, is that money is constantly being stripped out of our economy. And that is why Wyandotte Countyans hate property taxes more than anybody I know. And listen, everywhere I go across the state, taxes are universally hated, but there's a difference. There's a mindset difference when you at least say, I hate it, but I see it being spent on me, versus I hate it and I see billionaires running off with my bag, right? And I think that's what's happening.
Right, or at least it also like opens up opportunities for the private sector, right? It's like, oh, okay, but someone else can make a bunch of money here now, right? Let's open a private school, open any other business that fills the gaps that the public option does not, right? But it's when you underfund these things, that's where the issue is. So let's talk about some of the areas that you think could really use the most amount of public funding, where we would allocate these tax dollars. I think when I was talking to Sarah Peru, she's running for the 3rd Congressional District. I want to talk about some of those where you think that money could be better spent.
Yeah, same. It's those top two: healthcare and education. In healthcare, of course, it's basic healthcare, making sure that obviously if you need to see a doctor, you've got access to care, you've got access to treatment, but it's also everything from prescriptions, making sure it breaks my heart when seniors are having to cut prescriptions in half or not take them because they can't afford them. So prescription coverage. Also, we don't talk enough about mental health, right? And that's where I think you said Sarah mentioned social work, but all the full continuum of mental health services, social work services, therapy services. I was having this argument with a Wyandotte County. There's a group called Wyandotte County Tax Protesters, right? And we've closed our homeless shelter in Wyandotte County. We've closed our mental health services in Wyandotte County. But then people want to complain about homelessness and, well, why are people not? I said, well, if you can't access services, then what else do you expect folks to do? And so again, it's that lack of investment in an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if we could invest more in healthcare, in mental health, social work, all of those things, we would start to cure the ills, whether it be homelessness. We all know the social determinants of crime, et cetera. So investing more in healthcare, and then obviously we talked about it, but public education. And again, it's not just, yes, you got to invest in the basics, in the STEM and the sciences. College prep is great, but we've also got to invest in trades. We've got to have civics in education. We've got to make sure that kids leave high school able to go function. Not everybody wants or needs to go to college in this economy. And so the reality is we have to invest holistically in education and educational opportunity, whether that's special ed, arts ed, civics ed, trades ed, or college ed. We've got to invest in all that. So healthcare and education are easily the top two. And then when people say, Eric, we can't afford to do that, I say, well, guys, look at the defense budget. It's $1 trillion. The next nearest country spends about $300 billion. I believe in American exceptionalism. I think that we should be the strongest country in the world. I want our military to be so strong that we never have to use it. To me, that's the point. But I think that could be done with $400 billion as opposed to $1 trillion. Take that other $600 billion and invest it in healthcare and education and see what happens. I read a book called The Accidental Superpower by Peter Zeihan. It's ridiculous what we spend on defense because we don't even need it. We are blessed with the geographic, it's like the game Risk. Mm-hmm. We're blessed with the A position on Risk because we have 2 big oceans next to us and we had 2 great friendly allies. So in our geographic position, if you were trapped in the middle of Europe or trapped in the middle of a conflicted continent, if you're trapped in the middle of the Middle East, you might have to spend a ton on defense. if you are America and you are trapped in the middle of North America, you actually don't have to spend trillions of dollars on defense. You should try working with your allies. So these are the kinds of energy that I bring to Congress, and these are the solutions that I want to bring to Congress. Our priorities are so screwed up. Fund healthcare and education in all forms. You can do that very easily by cutting back our defense spending from ridiculous to still epically great, and fixing the tax code to make sure that billionaires and mega corporations pay their fair share, while my grandma and my mama and teachers and nurses and firefighters are paying 25 to 30% of their income, and billionaires are paying zilch. Like, come on, let's fix that. And here's the cool part. I don't think that that's as controversial as partisan politics wants to make us believe. Certainly there are very greedy, very selfish, in my opinion, very cruel and hateful people at the top of that will just take forever. But remember, I'm a businessman. I have investors that invest in real estate projects. There are some wealthy families that know that we do community impact projects that invest with us that have said to me, Eric, I would not mind paying taxes. If I could pay more taxes so that Wyandotte County didn't struggle while Johnson County succeeds, I'd gladly pay more taxes to that. And so I think I'm careful not to demonize all rich people, because I think that it's really greed and selfishness that are the problem. But I also think that our political class is too beholden to the corporate class and the donor class, and that's why I keep begging the kind-hearted rich people that I know will get up and say it. Get up and say, I would not mind paying a little bit more in taxes, or even a lot more in taxes, if everybody had a meal, everybody had an education, and everybody had quality health care. And so I think that's what we do need. We do need those that have the resources, including myself. I'm fortunate that my public education got me to a point of attainment where I can say whatever the heck I want to say, because I don't need a government paycheck. I don't need a job in Congress. I don't need to go sell out. I can say what needs to be said, and what needs to be said is that once you reach a position where your family is fed and clothed and happy, reach back and help others. Do not go sit in your ivory tower and accumulate wealth and accumulate assets and act like the rest of the world doesn't exist. And so I'm always cautious, though, Alex, because, these are polarizing topics if we let them be, but I think we've got to remember, again, goes back to that spirit of love. We cannot let 10 or 100 or even 1,000 really greedy, really cruel, really hateful people turn us all into hating each other. And so I do fundamentally try to find the good in folks. And again, I want to give credit to those who have been supportive of like, hey, I support the work that you do to build affordable housing. I support the fact that you're investing in clean energy and sustainable systems in East Side communities that have borne the brunt of pollution and disinvestment and redlining and all of that. So there are some good folks that are allies, but we need them to be a little louder and actually a little more focused on solving problems than just being quiet or being beholden to this political class.
Of course. Well, and let me clarify. Yeah. I hate bad things. There are things that affect people negatively, obviously. Like, when a data center rolls into town and absolutely destroys the water supply, that's something you can wake up in the morning and hate. And, hey, sure, I want to change that. When, let's say, like the prison system. You know how, you go to prison and then you're legally allowed to be a slave under the Constitution?
That's crazy.
That's dumb. I hate that. And I think there should be people who work to change that sort of thing. You could be motivated to hate certain things and things that hurt people, but you do it because of the people you love. You get out of bed in the morning to go and fix things. But I'm just letting you. That's just how I operate.
No, and Alex, I'm giving you a hard time, man. I love where your head's at. I love this question. I'm really just giving you a hard time, brother. It's all good.
No, and I just, but so that's I want to just circle that back.
Yeah.
I kind of want to wrap up with. I just want to talk about what your vision is for this campaign and for what you'll do with your time in office. Like, where do you see yourself post election win? Like, once you get up there, do you see yourself as someone who wants to take like a front seat and like go and put these people to task and say, hey, you know what I mean? Like, are you willing to go and challenge those people?
We're absolutely going to challenge it. If you haven't already noticed, I am willing to speak truth to power and challenge it. We do have to build alliances, and so we've got to reckon with. I do believe, especially when we flip this seat here in Kansas, we will be the 51st. I mean, it's going to be close in the Senate. I think the House, we're going to flip the House. We being Democrats. Democrats are going to flip the House. Are Democrats going to flip the Senate? Could very well come down to Kansas. I believe that I'm going to win this seat and that we are going to do it. We do have problems to deal with, though. Again, I've been a Democrat all my life. People can call me as pissed off as they want. Chuck Schumer is not going to be our leader when I am in the United States Senate if I have anything to do with it. No disrespect, Chuck. You've been here a long time. Thank you for your service, and it's time for you to move on because we need leaders that are not beholden to this status quo, that are not beholden to what's been going on in Washington. So I'm motivated. There's folks like James Tallarico that's going to, I think, win in Texas. Abdul El Sayed in Michigan. I really like what Abdul is doing. So I think that there is a class of us, a group of us that could come into the United States Senate and could demand immediate accountability. Take control of the Senate, elect a new Senate leader that shares our values, that is willing to have the hard conversations and do the hard thing. And again, I even say hard things. It's only hard because money's been buying politics for so long that it seems hard. I have no problem going, I don't have misconceptions that I'm going to be the Senate Majority Leader, but if I were, we would immediately begin impeachment proceedings. We would immediately begin building dossiers and investigations because when these people are out of office, and they know it, they've said it. They've said when we lose power, we are all going to jail. That's correct, right? And so we just need to get, I hate to say it, I love you Democrats. I hate the Democratic establishment. We need to get the bought-off establishment out of the way so that those of us who share values and community can go and drive what the majority of Americans and the majority of Kansans want, which is we want change. So we're going to hold people accountable for corruption, for crimes. High crimes and misdemeanors are going to be prosecuted. What I hate is the politicization of the justice system. So I'm not saying this in any partisan manner. I'm saying this in a factual manner. We are going to build cases. We are going to take them to the American people. And we are going to say, if you harm children, if you harm democracy, if your cruelty rose to a criminal level, here's a set of handcuffs for you. I mean, that's the reality of what we have to do. How quickly we can do that is going to depend on things that are out of my control. I'm one of 100 U.S. senators, but I believe if there are 51 or 52 of my party, I've got to go reckon with my party, and I think that reckoning is starting to occur. It's never as fast as we want, but voices like mine, again, voices like Abdul, voices like Tallarico, there's enough of us coming into the U.S. Senate as Democrats, but as a new kind of Democrats, not a corporate or establishment kind of Democrat, that I think can come together and get stuff done. But make no mistake, in the same way that Donald Trump and this MAGA movement hijacked the Republican Party, it is not what it used to be. I think that there's a reckoning that has to occur in the Democratic Party, and there are folks that are going to need to step aside. And so that's another thing, term limits, right? I will go and serve 6 or 12 years. 2 terms. That's it, right? There needs to be a term limit. 12 years in the United States Senate is plenty. I'm going to get as much done as I can. We're going to work every day to pass Medicare for all. We're going to work every day to enshrine every rights, women's rights, human rights, civil rights, voting rights. We're going to enshrine and rebuild the damage that this administration has done to our Constitution. We got to deal with our Supreme Court. There are things that we can get done over the next 6 to 12 years when I'm in the U.S. Senate. And here's the thing I'm most proud of. We've got to build a bench. This can't be, so many of our leaders get in power and they just hoard it. There are young people coming up with great ideas and great energy and pass the baton. Who wants to be a 90-year-old U.S. senator? I mean, we have senators dying in office. So I'm proud, though. I'm 44 now. When I am 56 years old, I will not be in the U.S. Senate. I will pass the baton to another 35 or I think that's the limit now, but like pass it to a 35-year-old, a 40-year-old, folks that are bringing new energy, new ideas. We've got to make sure that everybody has a voice in this democracy. And for too long, it's been one class of political elites that are a lot older and have been there a lot longer than they needed to be. So, yeah.
Well, damn, Eric, I couldn't said it better myself. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate you doing this, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
I'll be watching the Senate race closely. So where can people go to learn more about you and your campaign?
Yeah, so the majority of Kansans agree with what I just said. And that's the hardest part to me, is that we let ourselves get defined with these labels and boxes, and then people turn their mind off. If we could really just get back to a government focused on solutions, that's the energy that we bring, and I want you to be hopeful. I want your viewers to leave this hopeful. I've talked to the majority of Kansans around this state. We all agree on those values. We've got to go and execute. When we see leaders go in and get shit done, people are like, oh, wow, this is what functioning government could look like. And I think it's incumbent on us, those of us who are elected, to go in and do that. So we talk about go to ericforkansas.com, sign up there, a bunch of tools there. People can donate. Again, our campaign is fully funded by individuals. We're not taking any of that PAC money. So donate, register to get a sign, sign up to volunteer. We got people walking with us in the parades this weekend. So all kinds of volunteer opportunities. But the last thing I want to leave them with, there's some cool other stuff on our site. So we've got the House Race Tracker where you can go and find out about other races, support candidates up and down the ballot. People love our energy. It's we, not me in this moment. We are doing the work to support everybody up and down the ballot, really drive that fundamental change that we want to see. Another cool thing that we've got, I am the only U.S. Senate candidate that's offering this level of transparency and using a new tool. It's called Digital Lock, and Digital Lock built a digital twin of me. It's not perfect, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's about 90, I'd give it a 95%. You can ask it any question. You can ask it what my favorite barbecue is, what my favorite sports team is, what's my position on Medicare for all. Oh. You can ask it any question, and so one of our issues is so many politicians want to hide behind a smile and a prayer and a wave and not actually tell you or engage with you on what they really believe as if it's a popularity contest. We think that voters should be informed and communities should be informed. So you can go ask my digital twin any question, and I think that's a fun way to engage. And people can really see, like, hey, this is a candidate that really wants to be transparent. Oh, look, who is this? Come here.
What's up, Louis? I didn't know you were down here.
Come here.
Here, go hang out. Go say hi to Eric.
All right, look at this. Hello. Can I pick you up? Look at that. Oh, thank you. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is great.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.